Hello, hello. Good morning. Great. I'm Ed Whitfield. I'm here with Sonia Wells and Deidre Cunningham, and we are from Restland. Okay. I'd like to thank Fred for allowing us to be here with you all and talk about the importance of pre-planning. Please note there's nothing to sell. There's no kiosk machine here, okay? So please keep your wallet in your purse and your checking account and your credit card. But we are going to talk about the importance of pre-planning. Our job is to go out and just speak why it's important for family to pre-plan, right? This morning, when we woke up this morning, I can assure you that everyone have pre-planned to be to church this morning, right? So it's the same old thing. So when you have a car, you have insurance to protect your car. So if something were to happen, your car and yourself is automatically covered. So we are going to allow Deidre to talk to us about the importance of pre-planning. Okay, Deidre.
Good afternoon. If Tim's message resonated with you this morning, let me hear you clap your hands. I certainly have had a few pity parties of my own. If you enjoyed your lunch today, clap your hands. Thank you, thank you. My name is Deidre Cunningham. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for Restland Funeral Home and Memorial Park. Our parent company is located in Houston, Texas, North Star Memorial Group. Quentin? Okay. For nearly 100 years, Restland has been a local and national industry leader. We help establish state code for both care centers and cremation here in the state of Texas. We are members of national and international industry entities. And what does that mean to you? That means if you decide to move or relocate, or you pass away in another state, and you want to use your Restland arrangement somewhere else, through these entities, that is possible. It also allows us to stay abreast of industry updates and changes, and allows us to continue to be leaders among others in our industry. If you have questions, please don't wait till the end. Let's make this as interactive as possible. Raise your hand, just throw out your question. I'll answer them. If you have questions online, maybe I can get access to those questions at a later time so I can answer them for you. But I'd like this to be a dialogue. I'd like us to address those difficult questions that we tend to put off until it's too late. These little cards are going to help me stick to a brief presentation so I don't keep you longer than an hour. Okay, over 2,000 families have been cared for and served at Restland on an annual basis. You can find reviews similar to this on restlandfuneralhome.com, Google, as well as Facebook. And I'm not able to read them there. Actually, I can read a little bit better if I just turn my head. A friend and I passed by Restland before Memorial Day and were amazed by the sea of flags. The sight was awe-inspiring, and it touched our hearts deeply. What a wonderful tribute to our armed services. Thank you. You'll find many more of those online. Throughout this presentation, I'm hoping that by the end you'll be thinking of myself, Ed, and Sonia as your advisors that's going to help you eliminate the financial burden that comes with the loss of a loved one. You see, when my grandfather died, back in 2019. It feels like it was a while ago. But every night, it's still alive and present with me. You see, his new wife of 8 years, she decided to cremate him. It was heartbreaking only because I knew that she said it at every family function. I know Grandpa's wishes. I know he wants to be buried next to your grandmother. They have a 53-year history. I know what his wishes are. She said it millions of times to my aunts and my mom, who had him for a father for over 60 years. And here she comes 8 years after being married to him and decides to cremate him. So I flew back to Georgia with my deed for the cemetery property. You see, I was fortunate back in 2007 when Grandma passed away that I was able to help Grandfather financially. I was able to help him purchase side-by-side burial spaces for him and my grandmother to be together someday. And I went to the funeral director after being shut out, not allowed into my grandfather's home. I went to that funeral director with that deed in my hand, and I said to him, "You have taken care of our family for generations. You knew that he wanted to be buried next to my grandmother. I have the deed here. He signed for this property. This is where he wants to be." That funeral director said some words to me I had never heard before. He said, "Cemetery property does not determine final disposition." I was clueless. I felt like he spoke a different language in my moment of grief. But I wasn't gonna stop there. When I couldn't reason with my grandmother, my step-grandmother, I started doing research because I know that without educating my family, we could end up in a similar situation down the road. All of a sudden, jobs in this industry occurred to me. And I felt spiritual forces saying to me, "This is your calling." I haven't turned back since. Every day that I help families get their affairs in order, start thinking about, if not actually planning their final arrangements, they're doing the work that they need to do to bless their families. You see, my grandfather's final wishes were never met, but every day that I serve a family, I pay homage to my grandfather. So not only am I gonna share with you my story, but I'm gonna also help you understand why it's important to pre-plan, and then why Restland would be a good choice for you. You see, experience has taught us in our industry, especially in the past year with this unfortunate pandemic, that when a death strikes, no one is prepared emotionally for the shock and emptiness felt at that time. So I'm gonna ask you to turn to a neighbor, and I'm gonna ask each of you to share something. Those of you that are watching us live stream, I'm gonna ask you to share I'm gonna ask you to share in our comments. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna think about a time that you lost someone. And I want you to put it in words. What were the emotional responses and experiences that you had at that moment? And what was your role in making sure that loved one's wishes were met? So we're gonna give you 3 minutes to turn to your neighbor. And you're gonna talk to each other. And you're gonna share. What emotions did you feel when you had that loved one that you lost? And how did it impact you when you had to help out with that person's final wishes? And if those of you that are watching us live will please share it in your comments. You can hashtag any emotional words that you want to share. So that all of us have an opportunity to dialogue about how it's made us feel when we experience the loss. About 30 more seconds. And you can wrap up your final thought. Those of you watching us live, please share your comments. Okay. Sometimes when you verbalize it, it feels therapeutic. We have a grief program, and it's free and it's unlimited to all Restland families.
You know what? Grief program?
Grief.
Like for people who are experiencing grief after a death?
Very good question. We offer grief support after you've had a loss for families individually as well as in group sessions. And it's unlimited. Mental health is very important.
Is that a free thing? Or?
It's a free service. So as you reflect on what your neighbor shared, as you think about your experience with loss, did you experience, I want you to show a hand. Did you experience sadness? What about depression? Anybody experience depression? What about pressure? Was there any financial pressure at all? Emotional pressure?
What I experienced is clarity that I want everybody connected to whoever dies, like if it's me, to be on the same page. And you know, like Jeannie and I have made it as clear, maybe we need to make it clear that we both want to be cremated. And everybody in my immediate family, on my side, I know wants to be cremated. And other than, you know, putting that in a will or something like that, you know, like I said, I just want everybody to be on the same page when I die, know that that's
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And under that weight of grief, you still had to make decisions, right? Some of you had to decide if you were going to put your loved one in a suit or casual attire, if you were going to have an open casket or a closed casket. Were you going to have your loved one in their eyeglasses? Was the jury going to be on or off before lowering of the casket? Lots and lots of decisions under the weight of grief. Are you going to cremate or bury, to your point? Or are you going to have a church or a graveside service? And so then you start to wonder. In fact, some of us beat ourselves up because we never talked about your loved one's final wishes. We didn't know what they really wanted. Would mom have been wanted for us to do more than we actually did? Would dad feel like we did too much? We spent too much money. Overspending is very common, unfortunately, when a loss occurs. Everybody's not on the same page when a loss occurs. Or did you make a decision based on lack of finances? You see, most people don't realize the average cost just for a funeral service is $10,000. Wow. That does not include your cemetery space, by the way. And other people still don't know that the costs go up all the time. Every 7 to 10 years, costs double in the funeral and death industry.
Why is that? Is it because just general cost increases?
Inflation.
Yeah, wow. With demand.
You see, as Ed mentioned earlier, it's natural for us to want to protect our families. We have insurance for our home. We have homeowners insurance. We have accidental death and dismemberment insurance. We have life insurance. We have health insurance. We have fire insurance. We are insuranced up. We have auto insurance, right? But the reality is only 1 in 2,000 people experience a car accident. Only 1 in 500 have a serious illness or health or disease. And when it comes to using that fire insurance, only 1 in 2,500 people actually experience a fire in their home. But one thing that we all know, that only 20% of us plan for, is that 1 out of every one of us is going to experience a death in our family. And so if for no other reason, that is the single reason for you to pre-plan. So I want you to pull out your notebooks. Go ahead with your question.
I just wondered what the other costs were associated with the entire day, the entire funeral, besides the $10,000 for the funeral service expenses.
Very good question. My experts are going to be able to go through that in detail with your personal choices, but just to give you some ballpark ideas, when it comes to cremation, you're looking at anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 additional dollars if you're choosing to use cemetery space. And when it comes to traditional burial, you're looking at anywhere from $7,000 as high as your personal choice on property location. In the cemetery, it's about location. Location. Thanks, Fred.
10 years ago, and the guy I was talking to, I said, well, I'm a veteran, and I want to know about burial expenses. He said, well, you're a veteran, right? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, all you got to do is die. I said, well, he didn't give me any of the mechanics of going about it. And they'll do, as far as a coffin or box, it's real simple, whatever they pay for, but they do, I believe they do pay for cremation for veterans, VA. So, y'all know anything about that? Or?
I'm gonna let Ed chime in, he wants to help out with this one.
So the answer to your question is, every veteran is required to a cemetery plot, just a cemetery space, okay? So when it comes to your burial plot, the veterans covers that. Anything else, you or your next of kin will be responsible in reference to the service part of it. Does that make sense?
Well, what about with regard to cremation, though?
Correct. So, service, traditional burial, cremation, your next of kin, your wife will be responsible. The VA only covers your burial plot and your memorial marker for you and your spouse. And your spouse. Yes. Your memorial, which is your...
Don't they provide the vault as well?
Correct. So they cover everything again. So they cover the cemetery space, the burial vault, and your memorial marker. Yes.
Well, my mom, I was telling her about this, she's 93, and I was telling her about this end-of-life seminar, because she's interested and wants to hear the feedback. And my father's a veteran, he's buried in Restland in the Veterans Park.
Okay.
My younger sister was cremated, and she's somehow interred on top of him. Somehow they put her ashes or something in it.
Correct. So that is called second right. So basically, if you have a single plot, a single space for one full body, you can then put your next of kin or your spouse in the same space, their cremation urn with you. But your family will be responsible to cover the second right because you are purchasing a second right to go in with your next of kin or with your spouse. Mm-hmm. We're good?
Well done, well stated, Ed. I just want to make one other big distinction to what Ed just explained. That free burial space for the veteran is only available to you at the Veterans Cemetery. The Veterans Administration is not going to cover your space outside of the Veterans Cemetery.
And that can always change too, right? That kind of coverage for the veterans.
I don't know, I don't want to...
Sure.
So next I'd like you to take out your notebook. I'm going to have you write down 4 things.
No, we don't have them yet.
Just one.
Yeah, we can share.
Okay. For those of you at home, make sure you're taking notes. These are the top 4 reasons to pre-plan. Anybody have any guesses? Say it out loud. Financial. Financial reasons. You get to freeze costs.
Preparation. That's it.
Say it again. Say it again.
I said preparation.
Preparation.
Yeah. You know,
When you prepare, you get to leave what we call a clear roadmap for your children to follow, for your spouse to follow. Preparation, I like that. Any other guesses? For peace of mind, knowing that you've communicated your wishes, Your loved ones will not be at a loss, worried and wondering what you wanted. And the final one is for confidence and assurance that you took care of it. And that's not going to be a burden on your family. Okay?
You know, we have life insurance to protect our children from having to go through any hardship. As long as we let them know what we want in our, final time.
Yes.
And that's, and we were very fortunate that his parents and my parents both had life insurance. And they both, unfortunately, we had time to prepare before they actually passed away, so.
Well done.
And you wish that everyone did, but we were very, very fortunate, and to God that we.
You're setting an amazing example for your
Yes,
children.
yes.
So having a plan makes all the difference. We have tools and resources for you. The photo you see on the screen there, that's our pre-planning guide for veterans. We have the pre-planning guide for civilians as well, so we have one for each of you. And if you decide that you want us to help you take care of your arrangements, we can help you with your final destination if it's in the National Cemetery or any other cemetery of your choice. But should you decide that Restland is your final resting place, we have 422 acres, and that allows you to keep all of your family together and start a legacy forever. So protect your loved ones. You'll see on screen now, we have cemetery options that are very unique. We offer both above ground and below ground burial. We have solutions for community gardens as well as private estates. So no matter if your final wish is cremation or traditional burial, you have a final resting home with us. Everyone has left their footprint in the sand of time. The strong desire to be remembered, that's a basic human need. So allow us at Restland to help you prepare your family and give them the protection that they deserve. So my final point that I wanted to cover today is why choose Restland? Restland has a community partnership program. And I want you to write this down. No other funeral home or memorial park has such an extensive and committed program in the community. And inside your booklets, you're going to find some brochures that talk about our partnership program. There's programs for the American hero. Not only does that cover our veterans, thank you for your service, it covers firemen and women, as well as policemen and women. This program allows us to offer special pricing just for you and for our American heroes. Inside your folders, I want you to pull out the sheet that has the red heading on it. It says Community Partnership. And I'm going to ask you to go ahead and fill the top part of that page out, top left page. And as you fill it out, I want you to raise your hand when you're done. And those of you that are watching live stream, Kim and Fred are going to have extra copies for you when you're here visiting again. And we're also leaving several of Sonia and Ed's business cards for you so that you'll have them to reach out. Just one is fine for each one of you, for you as a married couple. And as you raise your hand, Sonia and Ed, they're gonna come around and they're gonna give you a membership card in exchange for that sheet of paper. And while you fill out that form, I'm going to tell Kim and Fred a little bit more about the benefits for the church. On an annual basis, Kim will have the discretion to honor one church member if you have a loss with 50 to 95% off all their services at Restland. And as long as we're partners, we can continue to do that one time a year.
That's huge.
For every one of you that does your arrangements with us, we're going to make a donation on a quarterly basis to Unity. So every quarter, Ed will come over with his certificates of appreciation and his check, a donation of $100 per each one of you that did your arrangements with us. That's our commitment to Unity. So this program is available to your church members and your clergy and staff. Welcome to the Restland family. And, oh, please share.
This is so funny. We've been married 32 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I forgot my glasses are in the car. So I'm trying to read this, and I come to and it says, I said, what does the second line say? And he says, married. And I said, well, is it the second box or the first box? And he went, it's the first box. The first box is no.
Sometimes the answer changes, right?
This is not a dating app. This is something entirely. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that was awesome. Thank you for sharing. So does anyone have any other questions I can answer before we wrap up?
Yeah. This is something I've thought about doing. I haven't signed up for it yet, but I've talked to, I work next door to a mortuary insurance company. And so they deal with this kind of thing all the time. And the guy who runs the office told me that UT Southwestern has a program where you can donate your body when you die. And so it's something a little beyond being an organ donor. And I think that was discontinued during the pandemic / lockdown because, you know, there were, I'm not sure, but is that not true?
It may have stopped briefly. I know that there have been several families that we've cared for at Restland that still donated their body to science,
Okay.
and then their families perform service with us thereafter.
So
So
that,
sometimes it could be a few months or a few
you
weeks.
can factor that into any package?
You sure can.
Okay, does it help with any kind of discount when you do that, or when you know, like if I get half off if I donate my body to science, you know?
Your Unity program is gonna get you an amazing discount.
Only one of us can die for a year. So we're gonna have to plan that's gonna be.
Move along.
Being good, discount.
Can I say something?
Yes, Fred.
My stepmother passed away, and, we did that. We donated her body to Southwestern Medical School. And what they did is they, took obviously the organs and things like that they could, in fact, use, and then tested. She had several ailments, so they were able to do some testing. But the end result is they went ahead and provided the cremation and the urn.
Oh, good.
Okay, so it was like no cost to the family. We had a plot at Restland next to my dad's. And so what do you do now? So what we did is we were able to donate that plot to and Restland helped us with it. They told us a charity, a family services charity, and our only requirement was that only a child could be buried there next to my dad.
Thank you for sharing, Fred. Go ahead.
I just wanted to share that when my husband died, I did this pre-arrangement after we had his services. And I did have a family meeting with all 4 of my children and said, this is what I've done, and here's all the information you need. It's in this book, and you can ask me any questions you want to ask. And they all were so grateful. And my daughter-in-law, who came with my son, said, I wish that my parents would do this. When I asked my mom, she says, oh, it's in a drawer, there's some papers in the drawer. She said, I wish that she would make arrangements and then have a meeting with us.
Wow.
And I'm getting ready to have one with my grandchildren.
Okay.
Because now I realize they're the ones that are probably going to be making the arrangements.
Thank you for sharing your story. That is such an amazing testimony about pre-plan. Everybody give her a hand clap. That's amazing. I think she's helped me do my job today. You have a question in the back?
No, I just have a comment. There's, for donating a body or for a science or whatever, there's several organizations other than UT Southwest, and I can't remember the other. There's 2 that I'm familiar with, but I know those other 2 do not provide cremation or burial after they're finished with doing their research. Then they have it up to the family to take care of the body after that. So, and if you want to do any of the body donation, you have to pre-fill out the paperwork beforehand.
Correct.
And they have to have the person that died's signature.
Yeah.
So,
Very well explained. Thank you very much. And we have another question from Kim.
So, Deidre, when you were telling us your story, you said that your grandfather's wife of 8 years, so they went by her decision because she was the next of kin, and her decision
Yes.
trumped everything else that was in
yes.
writing?
Very good question, Kim. And this is something that we all need to be aware of. By law, the spouse makes the decisions unless the blood family, the children, in this case would have been my mom and my uncle and my 2 aunts, had some prearrangements, some contracts that said my grandfather pre-planned for his funeral service. The final disposition of his body, there's only 2 choices: traditional burial or cremation. Had we had a contract that he had agreed he wanted to be buried, she had no say, but we didn't. We knew nothing about prearrangements. My family was naive about the process of prearrangements. We knew we could buy burial property, but that has nothing to do with your final disposition wish.
Even if it's in the will, if they write their will or?
Very good question. Who knows when the will is probated?
Oh, it's way past your
Way after death occurs. And sometimes on a fast basis, wills are probated in 2 weeks.
If you're lucky.
Gotcha.
That's on a fast basis. But in majority of cases, we're talking several weeks and months before you can probate a will. Because you can have a will, but it still has to be probated
Right.
by a judge.
Gotcha.
So is there, I'm sorry, go ahead. Is there I assume there's a pre-planning, paperwork that your family can go ahead and have filled out, notarized, and put somewhere safe that you can execute on that, correct?
Your contract that says you want it to be your prearrangement contract, that's what determines that you want it to be there. Yes. When you purchase a funeral service or cremation service,
Okay.
and you're the beneficiary for that service, that's what determines your wish.
So in your situation then, just because there was a plot that had been purchased didn't mean that he's gonna have a traditional burial or cremation. Either could have happened, because the ashes could have gone in the plot.
They sure could have.
And so this contract can be informal, so I could sit down and write this out and sign it and say, this is what I want to have, and that's what would stand, or is it a formal contract?
If you have something that's notarized and signed and accessible to those that you decide are your decision makers, they will be able to use those documents to help. They have to be presented and they have to be notarized.
Okay.
But if your spouse is on disagreement, it's best to seek out an attorney now so you can get clarification. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, so my mom is actually near death. And, so she had paid for her funeral 10 years ago. So now she's actually in a skilled nursing facility, and, they're very expensive, as we all know. So she's in the point where we're filling out Medicaid papers for her, because she will run out of money if she doesn't pass before she does that, which may be a few months. And so because she has paid for these funeral services, is it true that the social services department cannot come back and ask for that money back?
They cannot.
They cannot, because it's already been done, even if it's within that window that you can't give money away, and.
They can't reverse her decision.
Okay, just making sure that's true.
Good question.
Irrevocable
No.
trust. Yes, it's called an irrevocable trust.
Yes.
Oh.
In Texas?
You mean when you prepare for your,
Mark, you have something?
Texas nursing home Medicaid allows for the burial plans and stuff, so they allow for that.
Wow.
But if there's,
Probably it's the same way as the type of a veteran's benefit or something. I mean, you know how, my mother is so spoiled. She's very spoiled. She has been her whole life. So she wants the best of the best, right?
Yeah.
So it probably wouldn't allow it to be that way had she not prepaid it.
right.
Yes.
It's a service
Yes.
already purchased.
Yeah.
If she still has property like a house or something like that, and you do the nursing home Medicaid, and if she did not already do the Lady Bird deed, and it has a new name, but if you look up Lady Bird deed, it'll come up on the internet. If she didn't pre-sign the Lady Bird deed, then if you do the Texas Medicaid for a nursing home, then Texas will put a lien on the house for when it's sold, or that Texas recoups their money back. But if you have that Lady Bird deed, that paperwork, then, because Texas allows for, inheritance to go down to families, so that's what that Lady Bird deed does, is it allows that, and Texas then can't, TDHS cannot recoup the money.
Well, that's good information, that answers my husband's and my question. We've been talking about going to an elder lawyer, but, my mom lives in the state of New York, so,
Which is different.
yeah, quite different.
Thank you all.
Lady Bird.
Deidre, if you have a trust set up, does that preclude any probate?
The funeral trust, it does. When you have your funeral trust, your cremation trust already on file, that funeral home is the one that's going to handle your services. There's no disputing that. You had a question?
No, it's okay. They answered.
The lady behind you, sorry.
Thank you. It's okay. I said, they answered my question.
Okay, good to hear.
Yeah, because, my mom was cremated. But we had a viewing anyway,
Okay.
And it was wonderful. And then about a year ago, we had the opportunity to go to a cremation service
Okay.
at Restland, and it was amazing. And we actually got to go into a room where we saw the
Cremation.
the cremation. Went to a cremation room, which was a real eye-opening for me. Because when my mom was cremated, we didn't see any of that. But we saw it I guess at the request of the family, I don't know. But you know what I'm talking about, that separate room, that
Yes,
separate
ma'am.
building?
Yes, ma'am. Our care center is where you went to witness
Yeah,
and spend a little time with your mom before the cremation took place.
yeah.
That is a service that we do provide our families.
I'm telling you.
Make sure we accommodate all your wishes. And you had a question as well?
Well, not a question, but just something to add. Those of us who like to get a good deal, it was my understanding that because it was 15 years ago when I paid for my funeral and all the costs, and I'm told that because they got their money then, it's drawing interest all the time. So even though the costs will have gone up by the time I use them, my family won't have to pay any difference anymore.
The family will not have to come out of pocket because the services that you purchased and paid for, we honor those 100%. Go ahead.
In your book of community partnership, it says under cremations, does not include direct cremation. I don't know what that means.
So direct cremation means that you don't want to have any services such as visitation or an actual chapel funeral or church funeral before the cremation happens. And so that's considered direct cremation. When you are picked up from the place of passing, we'll come to the hospital or the hospice care, to your home and pick you up and bring you into our care. And then with direct cremation, we move forward with the cremation process.
So you're just handling the body side of it, basically, and then if we want to have a memorial that's not connected to Restland, do that. Right. That's
We offer full services. So with the packages that allow for viewings and funerals and chapel services before cremation happens, you're still entitled to those community partnership benefits.
Thank you.
I appreciate all of these great questions. We have a seminar special to extend to you. Not only did we offer you the community partnership program, but we're offering you an additional 5% off for funeral and cremation should you take the time to meet with Sonia or Ed between now and July 15th. Because we all know if we wait and we wait, this is not top of mind, and then something happens and we forgot to prepare. So make sure you see Sonia or Ed before you leave. Schedule some time to learn more, to get all your questions answered, we're prepared to help you. Thank you so much, Unity, for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And Sonia told me that we can do this quarterly, so we can keep this conversation going. And the board and I are working on something so that you can start putting this to action in your lives, for those of you who want to start pre-planning. And so we'll keep in touch with Restland so that we can get you all the help you need. I didn't realize all this was involved. And I think one of the things to remember is that family stuff, if you've got family stuff happening now, family drama, it hits the fan when somebody dies. It does. If you think it's bad now, it gets even more interesting when somebody passes. And so I think that's why pre-planning is probably so important. And then that way you can circumvent maybe some of the drama, maybe not all of it. Maybe not all of it. We are so grateful that you came here and took all this time. You fed us and put up with our craziness and everything. This was wonderful. Now though, we need to get to planning. Absolutely. So thank you very much. If you have more questions, let me know, and we'll stay in contact with Restland. And have a great day. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and doing this. We appreciate you. Thank you everybody for watching, and have a glorious day. Excuse me?
In there with the video.
Oh, yes. Now we're having a video.